All right, we're good.
Hi, I'm Ryan Levine. I just top forward the St. Louis Regional with my Order Hawks deck. If you have never seen this channel, this is our podcast channel I do with Jeff Jones and Bowden Temnick. It's usually like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Or other, it's kind of now it's just a card game variety channel, honestly. Have a listen to that. If you are usually a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player that's heard me talk about Universus on the podcast a couple times, then by all means, check this out too. Let's get into the deck. So I played Hawks on the Order symbol. I played 4 copies of Hawks Feather. I think some Hawks decks don't even max out on this. They kind of just treat this as like a free resource you get every turn, but it's not like a central part of the strategy. This is very much a Hawks Feather deck, as the attacks we'll get into. Like 4 copies of Featherstorm. I was very kind of 50-50 on this attack for a while. It never really seemed like the most unfair thing that Hawks could be doing until Double Jumbo Fist came out, which I will, So Double Jumbo Fist, I think a lot of people overlooked this card, me included, when it first came out, because you are playing on +1 progressive for the whole turn, but when you're playing 1 difficulty attacks, or in the case of, like, the true combo is Featherstorm into Double Jumbo, put a Double Jumbo in your card pool, now your feathers don't count towards progressive. Every single feather you play for the whole turn is going to be on a 4, on a 4, on a 4, on a 4, and they're all just going to be +2/+2, plus the speed, +2 damage. They're just going to be 5/5s, and you're just going to throw 2 to 7 4 difficulty 5/5 attacks. I say 2 to 7 because there are many cards in this deck that will pick up a feather and just play it again, and then you can just play it again as your next attack. So the biggest example of this, I'd say, I had a top 8 feature match that I think was a very, very good showcase of how this deck operates. So if this deck looks interesting, I recommend checking that out on the official stream. It was pretty cool. To round out my attack lineup, 3 focus attack. This deck is a mono mid deck because if you don't, mono mids and then Featherstorm, but it's the start of your string. But other than that, I want to make sure I'm playing as many mids as possible so they all get damage and speed from the Double Jumbo Fist. So every single attack I have in this deck is a mid after the opening move, basically. Because if you're not getting extra stats when you're playing attacks, then it kind of is not worth it to be on extra progressive. But focus attack is just your opponent is dead at the end of a string because it can count all of the feathers, counts the Double Jumbo Fists, etc. And then the other cool trick that Hawks gets that most other decks don't get is in the situation where you have this, or even if you just have this only, you lead with Double Jumbo Fist, you put on your card pool, you've played an attack on a 4, now you're playing focus attack on a 7, so you're checking a 4, checking a 7. Worst case scenario, you check 2 3s, so you're committing 5 foundations total from your stage, and then you kind of just go enhance from your hand, Hawks Feather. You just put all your feathers in your card pool after this with their own enhance to just speed it up. It'll be like a 15 speed move, and then the combo enhance will check all of the mids in your card pool, not just the ones in front of it. So it'll go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and this will just be like a 20 mid 20. And your opponent will go, oh, and then they will be at 0. So, and then it has the deadlock, which this deck does not play Vile Seizing, so having the extra deadlock of just an insane like auto-win deadlock ability is very, very important. Big Fist Bash is the other new addition from Girl Power that I think was really crucial for this deck, and the first of many cards that will pick up a feather from your card pool. So when you're going Featherstorm, Double Jumbo, feather, whatever, this comes in with -1 difficulty because the feathers are in your card pool. They don't count towards progressive. So if you're in a situation of like Featherstorm, feather, whatever, okay, Big Fist Bash. It's -1 difficulty because there are 3 cards in your card pool. These don't count towards progressive. So it's a 3 difficulty, and then you're only paying 1 extra. So you're playing this on a 4. Then you're picking up a feather, and then, wow, this is still on a 3. So you just have a ton of unfailable moves, and this deck just can kind of machine gun them down when you have once you have milled enough feathers and you just actually have feathers in rotation, this deck can get a lot of damage very quickly, very hard to block. Because they need to have like 10 blocks, basically. And then the last of the attacks are Absorbed Energy, Spirit Strike. This is probably the most like tech card in this, the most like tech like attack. ripping their momentum and giving you momentum, and flipping their attack. Like, this is just a very good utility card, and it happens to be a mid. And probably the most important reason and why it's at 3 in this deck is it happens to be a high block. There's not much wiggle room on what your attacks can be in this version, and mid block, mid block, mid block, mid block, low block. So your default package is like a ton of mid blocks. They're good mid blocks, and you're picking up Hawk's Feather every turn, so you're getting free mid blocks essentially. But you need high blocks, and that is probably the one weakness I think this version of Hawks has compared to a version that will play Vile Seizing or something like that. Is you miss out on like the premium 1 high block breaker 1, but that is the end of the. So this is a really good like replacement for like a premium high block that just gives you a lot of value, and that is the end of the attacks. 20 attacks, 65 cards total. We've got 4 actions, 2 showdown. This is an insane block, and in Hawks, it doesn't really matter that it is a +3 high, because once per turn, Hawks can just make an attack a high. So you can, once per turn, like Showdown's biggest weakness is if they have a low attack, you just can't even play it. But Hawks says, now I can play it. And then you showdown them, and then you either end their turn, or towards the end of their string, you showdown their big move that you do a speed reset on, and you commit their defensive foundations, and then you just steamroll them with your feathers, basically. So this card is extremely crucial. The only reason it's just at 2 is because I don't think you can afford to play more actions than this until it like kind of messes with your consistency. And Fierce Swings is just, I think, such a good utility card. It can pick up feathers you mill in the middle of your turn, which seems not that consequential, but it is really important. It can pick up Showdown, another reason why I think having only 2 is fine. And this gives you a lot more flexibility on your foundations, because you can play like more one-ofs than maybe you would otherwise feel comfortable with, and then Fierce Wings can just pick them up, which is pretty relevant. And then the response is just actually really, really, really strong against Godzilla's board wipe and against stun-esque characters like Toga. Like, this card actually catches Toga off guard very, very often, and which I'll bring up a specific interaction in a second. Two training weights. I've gone up and down on this card a lot of times, and I think 2 is just the right number. You don't really want to like brick with like multiples of these, but you do want to see it. You can't really just play 1 and then you're just hoping to draw the 1 of eventually. I think you do need to see this card a little bit more consistently than that. This is not a crucial card, as you can see, like some of these cards like Focus Attack and Double Jumbo Fist will just be enough for lethal, but this means that you can beat them. You can have lethal pretty easily with just Feathers and Feather Storm and stuff like that. Basically, if Feather Storm provides the speed, training weights will provide the damage, and Absorbed Energy Strike will get you extra momentum along with some other stuff. So I do think this card is very, very, very strong, and definitely should be at, I think, no less than 2. Now the foundations. I think almost all of these foundations were like pretty perfect in the ratios. There are a couple I will talk about that are really good together, and you could argue bumping the numbers up on them so you see them together more consistently. But 3 copies of the new number 1. This is the best foundation in this deck, period. It does everything you want. It mills 2, so you can get to your feathers more consistently because you want milling. And speed resets in Hawks are so important and so strong, because 1, if you save your response, this isn't putting their attack to printed -1, it's putting it to printed -2. And then you can either just obviously block it extremely easily, or you can just fire off the Hawks once per turn, and then no matter what they did to their attack, you're basically saying, okay, I'll put it to, maybe like 4 speed at most, probably less, probably like 2, and then flipping it, and now it's for 2 damage or whatever, and then you just take nothing, or you just take 2 or whatever, and it's just super great. This card is just, and the fact that it's a repeatable reset is just so strong, and it's a high block, which you need, which is why it's kind of okay, I think, to go a little over on a unique, just because it is a good block. It's a block zone that you need. So these 3 cards all kind of work together very, very, very well, and this is a card that is also works very well with Fierce Swing. So this is probably like the optimal build with Fierce Swings against the decks that are like trying to stun you. So these 2 cards function in, they need to spend momentum to activate, but they also generate their own momentum, which is fine. This lets you put any feather into your momentum, even when they didn't deal damage, and then you can just kind of deny your opponent momentum for the entire game. And some of these characters, like Amajiki, Godzilla, and Toga, really live and die by their momentum, and just getting rid of 2 of them every single turn puts them so far behind. Hacker for the really annoying assets like Idenbox, and forces them to burn their Team Doctor negate, and it is very, very good against Mimic. I think this almost like single-handedly just solos Mimic. Like if you see this in the first like 2 turns, Mimic, it's really, really hard for them to win. And then this is just another really good way to spend momentum with number 2 Pro Hero. Just stop, you don't get stunned out or anything, and it's very, very strong tool. I underestimated this card quite a bit for a while, but I think playing multiples is good. These are the cards that I think you could argue playing more than 2 of each of these, so you see them together more often, but I think this is pretty fine. Those are kind of all the ones that go together. 2 Unexpected Hero, 2 What is a Symbol. This is just a good high block, because you do get the Pro Hero Breaker 1, because Hawks is a Pro Hero. He does have the keyword. Unlike Nezu, but that's okay. 1 copy of Take to the Sky. This is probably the second worst card in this deck, but you really just need high blocks, and this is like a pretty reasonable one. Like building this and then milling and hope, like if you hit a feather off that mill, then this looks like the best card ever made. But it's and then this deck is sort of sometimes weak to mono low, and like you get a small benefit of you can flip and minus damage to a low, but that's not really why you play it. You play it because it builds, and you can get to block off of a progressive. Citywide Crisis. This is a fantastic one of, like the ideal one of, and I think I would probably side a second copy of this in the future. Just speed reset, play ball committed is really, really, really strong. Hero Killer. This is by far the worst card in my deck. I played it because I just really last minute wanted another high block. And even though it's not a great high block, it was just a high block, and it was something different than the cards I was playing, and whatever. The response is okay. Like sometimes it can be really strong to, remove one of their important foundations, but the Deadlock first form in this deck might actually just be the most powerful, like, Deadlock effect literally ever. The Deadlock says all weapons this turn get stunned too. Hawk's feathers are weapons. So every single feather you play, and as I said, there are turns you will literally play 7 of these at once. Like they will not have a stage left after. Oh, also Feather Storm is also a weapon. So you just go Feather Storm, Hawk's Feather, and their stage is gone. And they nobody should ever build into Deadlock when you have this up. But it was definitely the worst card in this deck, and that's like I'd never resolve the Deadlock, because obviously why would they build into it? But it is what it is. It should have been a second copy of Incompatible Quirks. This card is so crazy. It is really, really, really good with training weights, where you get into this sort of like, groove where you are committing foundations to pass checks on some of your moves, and then you are training weights, and then you're committing incompatible to ready training weights, and then you're removing a committed foundation to ready incompatible. And it basically turns your face down foundations into the cost of training weights. And so you're not actually spending foundations to buff your moves, you're just using incompatible. And having a second copy of this, I think, would have been much, much, much more valuable than having one of these, even though it is not the block mod that I needed. Those are the 2s. For the 1s, we have 4 Ice Gliding. I think pretty self-explanatory. This is just one of the best spams in the game. It is Speed Hate, and in Hawks, it's essentially commit for -3 speed, because he just tacks an extra minus speed onto the first speed modifier that you play each attack. So very strong. Feather Control. This is the other way you pick up your feathers in your card pool. The Deadlock is very strong. It lets you kind of break through. When you're in a situation of like Feather Storm, and then you're throwing feathers and they're in Deadlock, it means you don't even necessarily need to find Focus Attack. All of your feathers are just getting +1/+1 anyway. So you're just going to be throwing after a double Jumbo Fist, and with like a Feather Control in Deadlock, all your feathers are like 6/6s. And as I said, you're going to play like 6 of them, so they're probably not going to win. The other cool interaction is this doesn't just pick up feathers. This picks up any non-action 1 difficulty card. So another cool interaction of this card is it helps you beat Learning the Standards, or Airy Smiles, or one of those types of cards. If they do something like Learning the Standards on your second mid attack in your card pool, anticipating there to be a a focus attack. So, you've got 2 feathers. Let's say this is like, pretty common. Like, if you just lead off your turn, feather, feather, it's pretty likely you're going to follow it off a focus attack. They take the 3, they flip learning standards. Now you must play a non-attack. Well, I'm going to play ice gliding, and then I'm going to play focus attack. Oh no! Why would he do that? Feather control, remove, add ice gliding to your hand. Now, the combo is 2 mids. Voila! So this card helps you beat some of like the more specific like hate pieces, and the same thing with Airy Smiles. Like if they Airy Smiles you and then you're not allowed to just play your combo, having a feather control can kind of just save you in situations like that without having to have more specific cancels. So I do like when the deck has like tools to beat some of these interactions like built in. Idle work just kind of keep you at a deadlock. It is kind of a problem when you flip some of your stage and you just need to build more cards and have them be live. So this card it's a necessary evil and it's a good low block, so it's fine. Relaxed Demeanor. This card can send your feather, but I think what really pushed it over the edge for me is this wasn't even in my deck before Curl Power. I think the fact that it can turn on Double Jumbo Fist whenever you want just adds another little like level of consistency, where if you don't need Double Jumbo Fist, you can just get a feather. But if you want to just push on the gas like early, you can just play a Double Jumbo Fist even if you don't have one in your discard pile, and then just put one there. This card also combos really well with, I'm going to skip ahead, with some zeros, like you're finished. So Relaxed Demeanor, you can Double Jumbo Fist, Relaxed Demeanor, put another Double Jumbo Fist on top of your discard pile, and then because it's there, you're finished and draw a card. So cool stuff, very cool stuff. This card also combos with Hacker Extraordinaire. If you play an attack, then Hacker Extraordinaire can spend a momentum, and then if it is the same attack that you're playing, then you meet the condition for your finish. So this card is just pretty good, and it's a low, which this deck doesn't have that many of. So, and then the rest of the zeros. 4 Kaib is a 1-mana Inferno, 2 mill, because milling your feathers is good, and milling them is sometimes good too. This card is crazy against Rodan, like, incidentally, is they kind of, like, they look at their top 2 and rearrange them, or their top 4, and I think the best way to play this against, like, a Rodan is you be inconsistent with when and how you activate them when they change their deck. Like, when they look at their top of their deck and they rearrange it, sometimes mill them, sometimes don't. Keep them guessing. You can make a read, I guess, but I truly think the best way to do it is to just be as random as possible and just, figure it out. And it can really just, mess with them. Because just the threat of this being there is sometimes they'll just put, like, the 3 on top of their deck. Because they expect you to mill it. You just go, pass. And then now they have a 3 on top and they're panicking. And then put on Scojing, just the best 0 probably in the game right now. Maybe this or basic training, but I think it's probably this. And then combos with Unexpected Hero, just sometimes draw an extra card. So where's that? Here it is. So here it is. So that's the foundations. That is the main deck. And then side deck. A 4th Absorbed Energy Spirit Strike. This is mainly for mono high deck. This is for any Falling Skies deck, basically. If they're playing like a mono high Falling Skies deck, I don't really want multiples of these. I'll take out one of these and I'll put this in, and that's pretty much almost always when this goes in. For Quenma's Task, I think the biggest weakness of Quenma's Task is just that you can't really side less than 4. If you side this card, you probably have to just side 4 of it, and I think it's fine. It can stop. The big one it stops is City Rampage. If you use this on a City Rampage matchup, you usually just win. If they're not getting plus to their check, they're not really playing enough attacks to be threatening, and you can almost always block them in Hawks. And then once you've used one, you now just have the threat of you could just draw the other ones and just destroy them, and you just get rid of whatever they want. You call 4 Hawks Feathers and just they die. 1 Genkai's Guidance. This is just like panic button. I don't think you really need to play multiples of them. A reason I think Hawks can get away with just playing 1 also is, I'm going to keep going back to this, you do always have the option of picking it up with a Fierce Wings, and Genkai's, because of its 2 modes, creates a kind of interesting dilemma, where if they're on an attack, and you get it to not be lethal because of Hawks or through, his ability or some other things, and you Fierce Wings pick up a Genkai's, then they know you're not dead. And they know if they play another attack, you're going to Genkai's it. And they also know if they don't play another attack, you start your turn with Genkai's discard a card from their hand. So now they might not be able to block all your feathers. So I think picking this up off of Fierce Wings is pretty valid. Like, even if they know it's there, they either play into it and force you to burn it, or they don't, and then they might not have enough defense for you because you rip a card from their hand. And because Hawks picks up 2 feathers every turn, he sort of has 8 hand size, so going down to, like, Genkai's discarding a card isn't that much of a big deal because you have extra attacks anyway. So I think this card is very fine in this deck. There's an argument to move one into the main deck. I just think it would be too many actions, but maybe you could just main one. For my side deck, 2 Detailing the Plan. Do not play this card. Play Will of Steel instead. I realized literally while walking to get lunch after the tournament that this should be Will of Steel in this side slot as my throw hate because Feather Control can pick up Will of Steel. So if you play against a Piako, instead of having this card, you can block their throw with Will of Steel, and then Feather Control pick Will of Steel back up, and then they can never win. So do not play this card, play Will of Steel instead. That is also unordered, it is also a 2 block, but because it is a 1 difficulty, specifically, you can pick it up with Feather Control. And that is definitely huge oversight on my part, and I should have played that card instead. Final side card, 2 Influencing the Youth. This card helps you break otherwise kind of unbreakable stuff for this deck, like Always Cool and Vast Strength. I think those are the 2 hardest cards for this deck to beat, and just being able to go, okay, all copies of Always Cool is really strong. So I think this card is worth playing, but I do not think it is necessarily main worthy. It is a 4, which is kind of rough sometimes, and a lot of matchups this just kind of doesn't do anything. So, but I do think having it in the side is pretty good. So that is my Hawks deck. Thank you for watching. And yeah, if you enjoyed it, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, whatever, and check out some other stuff that we have on this channel. I'm going to have another deck profile from St. Louis going up soon later this week. It'll be Calvin Tahan's Amajiki deck. So check that out later. Bye.